Hi everybody, I'm Brock McDonald.
And I'm Harvajala.
And welcome to RCBC TV.
Where we're about more than just recycling.
In fact, one of the things we're really interested in is sustainable enterprise. And we've got an interesting example of that from a student at UBC. What they've done is they've collected used chopsticks. Now, I don't know if you live in Vancouver as I do, but there's more sushi restaurants than there are Starbucks.
That's saying a lot.
Oh yeah, no kidding. And so apparently there's about 100,000 chopsticks a week that this entrepreneur is collecting. And some of the things that they're doing are quite interesting. You know, what were our options before? Waste to energy, yeah, recover that, or maybe composting. But have you seen some of the products that they're developing with this?
Yeah, I did see the article on CBC.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of neat to see that it's both functional and for us Vancouverites, it's very design worthy as well. They're a little bit like mini art installations.
Yeah. And so what they do is have a process to collect these things, and they, coat them in resin and they dry them out. There's a whole process that they go through, but you're left with a really good raw material to be able to make all kinds of things that have practical applications. Like you said, in some ways it's art, but there's also things like tables that they can build for the very restaurants that have been supplying them with the chopsticks.
That would be amazing. Could you imagine? You eat dinner and then you go back and sit in a chair? Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really closing the loop. So that's a really good example. But those materials and resources that aren't finding their way back into the industrial loop have to go to landfill. And so we've now heard some information from Metro Vancouver about some changes in the tipping fees. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so starting in the new year, in 2017, Metro Van's going to make some slight adjustments. Really what they're going to do is they're going to increase the surcharges for hazardous material and for product stewardship materials that are ending up in the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also going to come up with an ability to waive the fees if you're a community cleanup group that's doing a project on public lands. So if you do a cleanup event, collect some waste, take it in, wouldn't it be great? You don't have to pay any tipping fees on that. So
yeah, speaking of CBC, we've seen some recent coverage about illegal dumping that's been happening here in urban areas and, of course, across the province. But for Metro Vancouver, I guess if someone goes out and cleans up one of those illegal dumping areas,
wouldn't that be,
that would be great that a community could get together and do that.
Exactly.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about illegal dumping, but we're going to move on to a report that has been filed by the Auditor General of British Columbia on stewardship. Now, it's about 19 pages. Did you read the whole thing?
I did take a look at it, Brock.
Okay.
I did read through it.
And I went through it too, and I didn't see anything that was, super insightful or revealing to me, but there were a couple of points that I thought were interesting. And one of them is that the ministry has set a contract for some outside consultants to do work on competition within the recycling regulation. That's going to be a big challenge.
Yeah, you have to, anytime you have competition, they always say it's good for the end consumer, but really, when you're talking about recycling, you want to make sure that it's easy for the general public. It's not a lot of confusion, and people can recycle what they need to. Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking forward to when that report comes out. Maybe it'll be ready for the ministry to share with people at our conference. Mm-hmm. But, there's been some things in terms of competition that have happened in Europe, but they found some issues. And so you don't want to have negative unintended consequences, right? Because it's a systems approach. And if you've got someone or an organization that is supposed to collect 75% of what they put into the market, and they've accomplished that by the 6-month period, they don't collect anymore, does that really accomplish what you want to accomplish? Mm-hmm. And particularly if, they're all getting the low-hanging fruit in big urban areas like Metro Vancouver or Capital Regional District, but, areas outside the Lower Mainland, like Chase or Hope or Prince George and that, might get neglected under that kind of system. Mm-hmm. So they've got to make sure in the regulation and the way they set up the competition that doesn't happen. So it'll be interesting to see what they say about that in that report. They're also working on, of course, continuous improvement for stewardship agencies. And you probably have a lot of anecdotal information about some of the questions that come in from people that call into the hotline.
Yeah, so I sometimes think even, brand owners, have some questions. Consumers, of course, have questions about the fees or the environmental handling charges, or, how they're being applied and what they mean. And so I think oversight is always good, always reinforces people's trust in the programs.
Yeah. And of course, the newest program, MMBC, for printed packaging and paper, it's really highly profiled in this report. There's a lot of focus on it. And one of the things they focused on is non-compliance of free riders. Mm-hmm. And as I think everyone pretty much knows, there is one group of free riders that is causing a bit of a situation, and that's newspapers. Mm-hmm. Now, the report identifies there being about a $3 to $5 million cost to MMBC and the subsequent brand owners who are in compliance. And they have the ability, the ministry has the ability, to levy $200,000 fines for non-compliance. By my calculation, that'd be like 25 newspapers being fined $200,000 in order to make up that $5 million. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't think so.
I think there's zero chance of that happening. But as we've heard, those negotiations and discussions are ongoing with the newspaper industry. Hopefully they'll find a way that they can work together and become compliant with the because it's really unfair for the other brand owners, right?
Well, it's almost like you're subsidizing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what's happening. So let's go back a little bit, and we talked about some of the community cleanup that happens with illegal dumping. Well, one of the things that we're going to be doing at RCBC over the next few months is conducting some primary research into illegal dumping. Mm-hmm. We're going to set up some surveys, and that'll go out to members of our organization, as well as other organizations like SWANA and the BC Environmental Industry Association and others. And we'll get a pretty broad scope of where professionals are that are working in this field. We're also going to do some interviews with specific regional districts and local governments to find out what they're doing, and get some information from them. We'll compile that information and provide it in a short briefing, that we'll provide to registrants for the conference. Yep. And then we're going to drill down a little bit.
Nice.
And we're going to have a couple of sessions, a plenary, and then a workshop, and try to come up with a toolbox of commonly used methods and process that people can use to...
and this is an issue that affects everybody. I mean, it affects
really
local governments, it affects retailers that do take-back programs, affects even residents who wake up and you find something on your yard. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of different strategies and ideas that can come from these sessions.
Yeah. And, there's some people who have a lot of experience in dealing with this. And, of course, there's experience from other jurisdictions. Mm-hmm. Australia has quite a program that they've got online that we can access. So we're going to look at what other areas have done, because there's no use reinventing the wheel.
What? No?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Those are the topics that we've covered this time. Yeah. There's always other topics to cover, and we're going to do that as we move closer to the conference in June. It's 21st, 2nd, and 3rd of June this year. Mm-hmm. We hope that you'll pencil that date in, make sure that you plan to attend, because, we are more about recycling. We want to make sure that we work together, and our theme this year is about collaborative problem solving. That's when we come to solutions, when we all put our heads together and work. So, until next time, I'm Brock McDonald.
And I'm Harp Angela.
We'll see you on RCBC TV.